Swimsuit.
Escape. Germany red. Gianni red. Dagny red.
Good. Yeah, for those of you that haven't been here and heard this before, the other arts that we teach, study here, we don't want them to go away. So the schedule's kind of changed over the past couple of years. Last year, we all know what happened to our schedule. So in order to kind of keep those alive, what I've decided to do, rather than putting like 15 minutes or something on the end of a class, the last Monday and Wednesday of class, last Monday and Wednesday of the month is what I meant to say. We're gonna do those other arts. Last month we did Taijutsu, this month is Kobudo. Monday we did Bo. So I was thinking, well, originally nobody else showed up but these two, and I'm like, well, let's do something different other than Bo. So now everybody else showed up, which is cool. But I'm gonna stick with my original plan, which means tonight that we're gonna play with Tonfa a little bit, which are those. So what I want everybody to do is grab a match set and get back in line. Okay, as we've talked about probably before, at least according to my memory. Okay, shift that way a little bit. Yeah, you guys got my feng shui off in the back. You can slide back over, Reese. It's creeping me out that you're doing that. All right, there we go. Kobudo comes from Okinawa, not Japan. Depending upon which myth / archaeologist that you want to listen to / historian, Kobudo, the weapons in Kobudo were either already weapons that became part of the Okinawa mythology, or they were farm implements that when the evil Japanese samurai invaded the Ryukyu Islands of Okinawa, deposed the king and took over the place, they picked them up to defend themselves. Which is true? A little bit of both, actually, at least in my opinion. The bow, we can see how that would have been an implement. It's just how they used to carry water, right? With a bucket on each end. Walking stick, very common back in the day. One of the other, well, of all of the Okinawan Kobudo weapons, we studied 5 of them. Bo, Tonfa, Sai, Nunchaku, Kama. There are at least like 5 others that I can think of off the top of my head, but there's also a bunch more. Of the ones that we don't study, one of them is Kinbei, which is a turtle shell that was made into a one-handed shield, like a buckler, and a sword or a machete. Yeah, okay, machete, absolutely, back in the day, right? Turtle shell, shield, not really a common farm implement. So let me see where that one came from. Another one is the Japanese, or the Okinawa word is escaping me at the moment, but it's a hoe, literally a garden hoe. So let me see where that came from. The kama, which is the last one that we study, is the sickle. It's the rice sickle that they used to cut rice with. Obviously a farm implement. The nunchaku, for those of you that grew up on popular culture, nunchucks. Nunchaku. No nunchucks, no nunchucks, none of that nonsense. Nunchaku. 2 sticks and a string, or 2 sticks and a chain. Was it a weapon? Was it a farm implement? Depends on who you talk to. There was a tool similar to an nunchaku that they would flail the rice with, because rice comes in stalks, like wheat stalks, the little kernels at the top. They would hold them upside down and they would flail. So it's not a difficult leap in logic to figure out how that may have become nunchaku. The sai, which is the long metal rod that one, people like to stretch it. Some people said it was based off of a roofing nail. Having done roofing, no, you don't ever use it if it's not a roofing nail. No roofing nail is that long, ever. Some people said it was the pin that they would hook livestock to wagon with. I can maybe buy that. I've seen used similar hitch pins like that before. More than likely, though, it came from China as a weapon. There is an actual Chinese police weapon that looks very similar to a sai, so more than likely just transferred over, and people are trying to get that to match the myth narrative. Tonfa. You may have seen it in its more modern form, police carrying. Back in the mid-'80s, you guys have no idea what I'm talking about. A police officer invented a metal side-handle baton, and it became all the rage with the police. Made most famous during the Rodney King whooping. When they did not have.
I felt one of those in my head. It wasn't good.
It don't feel good. If you know what you're doing, if you do not know, like the California State Highway Patrol did when they tried to arrest Rodney King, you end up on TV and it falls out of favor. But it was basically a tonfa. The guy studied martial arts. He just had good marketing skills, so he invented it. So, no, he didn't. Where did it come from? A couple of possibilities. One, it was actually a weapon. I can see that. The other one is it's very similar to the handle that they would use when they would mill rice. So if they got no flail in their rice, they would put the kernels to turn into powder. Put it on a big flat stone, a big millstone on top of it. They would stick something similar to this in the top of it, this way, or and around this way. Okay. All right, so much for history. Design. There are two basic designs: there's round tonfa and square tonfa. If you buy your own tonfa, buy the square ones. But geez, why did you get round ones? Because when I ordered them online, I screwed up and hit the wrong button. And they were really, really expensive and non-returnable. So, forever and a day, I am stuck with round tonfa. Okay. And that is the exact truth. Why square ones? Because they're flat and they're easier to maneuver in the beginning on your arm. These, in the beginning, are pain because they want to slip. We hold the tonfa, we're just going to put them on our hands this way. Tonfa are controlled by the interplay of the web of your hand and your pinky. So we're not going to control it by grabbing at it. It's actually this counter pressure between your pinky and the web of your hand, braced against your forearm. Okay. We are not ever going to do this with a tonfa, where we can see daylight. It's always going to be up against our arm. Okay, so enough of that. Questions on any of that? Make sense? Good question.
Could you spell that? Tonfa?
T-O-N-F-A.
Works.
You will also see it spelled Tuifa, T-U-I-F-A. Chinese, Okinawan, different pronunciations, different whatever, but basic American this side of the pond, Tonfa, T-O-N-F-A, Tonfa. All right, enough of that. So everybody's got them, one in each hand? Okay. Okay, so we're just going to make hiki ten. And we're going to start out with a simple side strike. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out, let the tonfa circle, bring the tonfa back, and hiki ten. And we're going to do the other side. Cross, back, and hiki ten. Cross, back, and hiki ten. Out, back, and hiki ten. Out. I'm going to count, you're going to do.
Both.
When you bring it out, out,
We're coming to that. I want you guys to fight with it a little bit more, and then that's the first thing I was going to explain. Eight. Eight. Up. Eight. Go. Rope. Seat. Hutch. Two.
Hey!
Yeah, man, relax. How many people had trouble getting a TOEFL to do anything remotely resembling what Sensei looks like or what I look like? All four of you should be nodding your head up and down right now. Okay. Why?
Too tight of a grip on my case.
Louder.
Too tight of a grip.
Too tight of a grip. Not really. It can be sometimes, but not really.
hand position
And position.
in the front, you know, if you move it.
Let's call that direction of travel instead. How about that?
Okay.
Yes. That's part of it. What else?
Well, you can see, sometimes, you can see.
Right?
like,
Having no idea how to make that counter pressure yet? Anything else?
Lack of experience.
Well, that's the easy one, but yeah. How do we make a circle?
I would say take a square and put infinite edges around it.
Okay. So he's trying to show me that he remembers when we talked about breaking a square into an infinite set of halves so that we end up with a circle. True. Does that apply to making the TOEFL do what I want it to do?
I'm guess not, sir.
No, don't guess. Yes or no?
No, sir.
Okay. You're right. How big? My apologies, it's been a long couple of days at work. My brain is still having a hard time getting out of work mode. So this doesn't apply. What other way can we make a circle?
Take a line segment and rotate it around a certain point on that line.
Take a line, segment, and rotate it. Good, right? Good. Am I understanding correctly? Okay. True. Does this apply to making the TOEFL do what it needs to do?
Yes.
Similar to that.
Yes.
Like a company. Yeah.
Okay, let's go one at a time. Did you have an answer, yes or no?
I would say yes. It's
Okay,
a
how?
line segment.
Okay,
I would say this resembles that line segment.
Right.
And here's the point you would rotate it.
okay,
You're already using this as well as a pivot, as seen in the diagram you're doing.
uh-huh,
The
great.
grip is some
So
starting.
basically the same thing Ken said?
Yeah, I would say yes, but it's sort of like a compass in which basically you got the point in the middle and you draw
Okay.
around.
Rewording of what Ken said, okay?
That's what I was gonna say. What you said.
I'll agree with that.
Okay. You are correct in that this is one way to make a circle. You are correct in how you are making the analogy between this and the TOEFL. This is what you all are doing, and that's why it's not working. Okay, because you all are trying to do this. Literally, that's what each and every one. The four of you are doing to make the TOEFL work, and this is not how a TOEFL works.
You saying we're coming out? Instead
We are making a straight line, just like we were talking with the bow on Monday. We are making a circle by making a straight line. The circle is a result of the straight line. How many people did I just really lose? Most of you, the rest of you just don't want to admit it. Okay. We talked a couple of times, I think, I want to say last summer. We talked again about it on Monday. I don't think you've heard this, so you might get your opinion on this too. For those of you who remember Scott that used to train here, he's one of the senior game designers, programmers at EA Sports, for those of you that have never met him. We got talking about the helical motion and power transfer. And his analogy was that back in the day, when they would animate games, they would animate all three axes of motion. They would animate 1, 2, and 3, and and it always came out jumping and chopping. So somebody figured out that if they rotated, or if they animated just the joint rotation, the straight line fell out automatically. So to make an arm go this way, instead of programming, go straight this way, and coming out with all of those angles to a point in space, they would just program rotate here, rotate here, rotate here, and the straight line motion fell out. The same thing with the tonfa in reverse. Just like that, the old style locomotive, right? You guys have seen that? The straight line bars that go back and forth and turn into circular motion. The same thing here. If I try to think about, make a circle like you guys are doing, and I'm cheating because my body doesn't want to do that. Try to get it to do that. It gets jumpy and it doesn't want to go. Because it has no momentum. You're trying to impart momentum at too small a point. And it's also, now that I think about it, the exact opposite of what we're talking about with a bow. With a bow, we don't want the center to move. We want rotation around the center. Here, we want the center to move. So I'm going to go out, and the circular motion falls out of it. I'm going to go out, and the circular motion automatically falls out of it. Okay, then you're not hooking. Okay. But, unlike the bow, we want the center to move, but just like the bow, it's going to move in a straight line. I don't want to circle the center. I want the center to move in a straight line. Because even as I'm going across here, this way, if I start long just across, this is traveling in a straight line this way. The circular motion is falling out automatically. So when we're here, I don't want to think about making a circle. I want to think about going out and across this way. I'm going to pull it back. I just pull back a straight line. Yes? No? Maybe? Or did I lose everybody?
Would you wanna make it in a straight line this way, or you wanna come out a little bit further?
Well,
Just seems more powerful.
just like we were talking with the bow, I have to make allowance because I can't go directly through my body.
You gotta get out a little bit.
So I have to go out a little bit so that I can get this clear of my body. So for me, it's out a little bit and then across. So I, oof. So I clear my body so I can get the front end out of my way and then across. Oof.
Oof.
So where you're gonna go flying.
With your right hand, you're going to probably hit him. Not that big a deal. Your left hand, you're probably going to hit the desk. Not that big a deal.
Don't hit me.
Yeah, he's in a good spot. He's going across. You're like in the void space between the two.
Yeah, we'll be doing these.
When we get to that, I would suggest shifting a little bit into this slot. Yeah. All right, from Hikite. Same set. Eight. Eight. Alternating hands. Sorry if I didn't say that. Thumb. Sheet. Oh. Oh. Yeah, man. All right, relax. Here's the other thing I just now noticed. The wrist remains in a fixed position. When I come across, I'm not curling the wrist. This is actually going to take momentum away from the tonfa. It's going to end up weird. So this is pretty much fixed. You know, even when I do, things like these overhead strikes, I'm still not going to curl the wrist. And like we're talking on Monday, the difference between karate and kabuto is about this much. So the odds are, if you wouldn't do it in karate, you're not going to do it in kabuto. And I can think of very few places where we would do this in karate. Zeech. Hutch. Two. Two.
Hey!
Good.
Us.
Come on, relax. All right, we used to ask a good question that I neglected to answer earlier, so we're gonna answer it now. How many people know who Fumio Demore is? How many people have heard of the original Karate Kid movie? How many people know who Mr. Miyagi is? Okay.
Okay, now I know who you were talking about. He was the guy that played the stunt double.
He was the stunt double and inspiration for the Miyagi character in Karate Kid movies. And other than his size, he kind of looks a little bit like Pat Morita, who played Mr. Miyagi. He's about the same height, but he's really stocky. Demore Sensei. For those of you that don't know his background, a lot you guys have heard me talk about Higaonna Sensei from the Goju. Very similar story with Demore Sensei. Born and raised in Okinawa, trained since he was about knee-high. Actually a Shikaru practitioner and a Kabuto specialist. Had the pleasure of training with him one time at a clinic over in, I want to say it was Koko. And we did Tonfa. If you're online and you see pictures of Eric and I standing next to this stocky Okinawan guy with athletic tape wrapped around our hands, it was that clinic, and that's Demore Sensei. One thing you'll find out now, gee, Sensei, why did you have your hands taped up? Were you guys sparring? No, we were not. It was actually to protect our delicate little hands because they were actually bleeding at that point. One thing, if you're not used to Tonfa, they should have this big knob at the top of it. And after 3 hours of sweating and doing this, you get a frick, you get Tonfa thumb. Right there, you start burning a blister on it. Eventually that goes away if you do enough Tonfa or you do very little Tonfa. Haven't done Tonfa in a while, you do 4 hours of Tonfa, you start to get a blister. So both of us ended up halfway through this clinic taping up our hands because they were blistered and bleeding. Tonfa are big motion weapons. You gotta get out and go. Now, the reason I brought up Demore Sensei, he takes it to the extreme. When he does Tonfa, it is full arm. That's his way. We kind of split the difference. So when I do this side strike, I'm kind of in a relaxed, almost like if I was going to do a long hook punch here. Whereas Demore Sensei would, he's going to be full arm all the way around, kind of thing. That to say this, pick one of those two, but it's definitely not small motion. Okay. Any questions on Yokozu side strike? Okay. Now let's practice our overhead a little bit. Same basic plan. Added to the fact that don't chuck it in the mirror, because I will throw you under the bus with Sean James. Not even a chuckle. All right, you guys are killing me there. So, what we're going to do, and we're going to start out from our hikite. We're going to lift up, almost like I'm prepping for middle inside block, right? We're going to go out, back, and hikite. Lift it up, out, back, and hikite. Got it. I count, you do. Question?
And making sure that this stays
Yes,
close to your
it's
forearm.
always going to return to this same spot. It's a good question. Why do I want this and not some other variant of where it could be one
As a block, you don't want it.
It is the block, okay? So why is it this just as good?
Control.
It's gonna
Partially.
hurt your arm.
So,
It's gonna hurt your arm.
right. You get that twofer, bang, bang. This is a good solid, I've now turned it into a decent block. This is a two. How many people in here have fired a shotgun before? What's the one thing you do not do with a shotgun? Is leave air between your shoulder and that butt pad, right? Because, again, Rope. Seat. Hutch. 2. 2.
Hut!
Bigger motion. You have the correct motion, so look, yeah, there we go. Good. 8. 8. Son. Sheep. Go. Rope. Just smooth that out, make it one motion. Rope. Again, one, not turning the wrist to get it there. Let the straight line do its job. The tall foot will get around that. Each. Hutch. 2. 2.
Hey!
Yeah, relax. One little trick. When you're doing weapons, well, really when you're doing anything, better to have your own tools, right?
Okay.
So if you're doing, get out the weapon, better to have your own, not borrow some. When I go diving, I have my own gear, I don't rent gear. Freaks me out. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of thing. Where it plays into Tonfa, and it plays into some of the frustration that you guys are feeling right now, the kind of generic one-size-fits-all, one-size-fits-none Tonfa have one thing in common. I think the handle's too long. Right. You notice when I grab this, my hand just barely fits between the base of the Tonfa and the knob on the handle. There's no daylight when I put my hand here. If there is, your hand, when it's up here at the knob, if there's daylight down here, you can't get the right counter pressure. So if possible, choke down on it so that the daylight is up here rather than down here. But the only bad thing about that is most of the generic one-size-fits-nobody Tonfa, they put a big knot bulge right here, which makes your hand creep back up. So if they're straight, you can kind of keep it down there fairly well. But if they put that big bulge in there, every time you go to move your hand, it keeps creeping up. It just keeps getting weird. So there is, if you're not feeling this, most of you aren't, it's because of that. It's because your hand is actually like this on the handle, because the handle's too long. Okay. Questions on overhead stroke?
So you commented that, I was trying to 1, 2, 3, but you're saying,
1, yes. When you were doing 1, 2, 3, it was good getting your practice, but you had the line exceptionally well. So just knock out the gap between them. Come out with that. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, so, are there any tips on to avoid that, having to force that wrist to curl to gain the momentum?
Yeah, quit doing it.
Okay.
Trust the fact that I tell you the straight line will make the momentum, will give it the momentum. If you try to make it have momentum, you bleed it off. You study physics yet in school?
Yes, sir.
Did you study physics ever?
Studied physics in high school, don't remember much of them.
Okay. For those of you that study physics, it goes back to the concept of the conservation of angular momentum. So I'm going to impart momentum to it, and I want it to maintain itself to the end. If I start altering things that have momentum, it starts subtracting off of here. So I want all of it translated to the tip end of the 1,000 push-ups that you just own for dropping your weapon. Okay? Similar concept, if I punch something and I collapse my wrist, here to here, the more things I start twisting and bending, the more I have to pull off of the end. If that makes any sense.
What's this?
Okay. Now we'll come to probably the most famous of Hohenmullers, the Furiucci, figure 8. So we're going to start out just like an overhead strike. We're going to start out, you're going to strike out. Okay, turn it over, strike the back side. Turn it back over, strike one more time over top, pull it back, and hiki-dai. So we're going to go out, around, over, back.
Okay.
Hiki-dai.
In this direction?
Yes.
Not.
Yeah, coming up for now. So, out, over, over, back. One, unless you've had a stroke, bring those hands up in a hiki-dai.
Well,
And then if you had a stroke, bring your hands up anyway. Up, out, over, over, back. Okay, Brandon, I want you to, as we do this, I want you to watch me, because you're doing something differently that I want to change. So we're going to start, everybody go with me. Out. Okay, that part's fine. Now, I want you to hold, everybody to hold on to it from here, turn it over. There we go. Bring it back. Come to here. Turn it around. Now, don't let it, you're not manipulating it on the way. From this backhand, this back fist, as I come around, I'm not manipulating it and letting it come back. I'm just turning it over. It should be pointing out, Brandon.
That doesn't sound so good doing it on that one. Well, I was saying my right hand. One second.
Back, and he can up, out, over, over, back. Now let's try and smooth it out all the way through. Yeah, everybody relax. Brandon's frustration is actually a good learning tool or teaching point because it happens and everybody will eventually get into it or has already tried it. You cannot manipulate tonfa with your fingers. It won't work. It has to come from the momentum imparted by the hip and the straight line action. So if you get somewhere that you don't like, no. Get somewhere you don't like, give it a big motion back. Nice. Big motions, big motions. All right, from hiki-dai. Once I've done that last strike, I want the tonfa to come up to get to the hiki-dai. Now, is it wrong to go down? No, we will eventually get to that, but the Furiucci is done with an upward motion coming back to hiki-dai. Hey. Son? 2. Two. Alright, relax. Everybody what sensitive for just a moment. Don't change anything that you were doing. Just I want you to do Furiucci the way you do Furiucci, just on your own 2 times. Right? Smooth. Good technique. Tiny circles though. Good thing or bad thing? Neither, just a thing.
Depends.
That's the way he does it. It doesn't really depend. It's the way he prefers to do it. Nothing wrong with it. Alright? As long as you understand what you're doing. The fluid motion is what we're looking for, and the targeting. Like I was trying to get Brandon to follow there. The basic format, collarbone, opposite collarbone, between the eyes, and back. The tinier motion has other uses and other targeting. I shouldn't say tiny motions. The smaller motion that he prefers has a slightly different format, potentially. Okay? But the smoothness is what we're looking for. There. You'll also notice, at no time did his fingers try to get involved. Okay? It's all through the manipulation of that straight line motion in the circle. And the momentum. Doing tonfa, 1 potato, 2 potato, is extremely difficult because it is in fact a momentum-based weapon. So if I do 1, to get this next motion, I have to make the bigger motion that I was demonstrating, which is here, the elbow. Again, here. But when it's smoothed out, it's not so much in the arm anymore, it's in the conservation of the momentums of going. Why that? Why not just bam? Why Furiucci? What's a good for? Okay, I showed you the targeting that we're gonna use. Why would that really matter? Yes. He, the SOB ducked. How dare he attack me and then duck? He should stand there and take his ass with him. Alright? Which is where the smaller motion really comes into play. Because if he slipped it, you're right on top of it. You're right there. You'll probably get the second one. If not, you'll definitely get the third one. Bigger motion that I do, just because I prefer the bigger motion, has more area for them to count. So, each to their own. His might not hit as hard as mine, but his is going to hit faster. Using the same kind of concept. Huh? All right. From you on. Mochido Furiucci. Hey. Hey. Good. All right, young man. Risa asked a really good question that bears an answer. When I was first demonstrating this, went out, and you notice I stopped here, in line. For the next motion, I basically just brought it over, still in line. When I brought it over, I ended up in line again. Come back, right? Do your Furiucci. Watch. Keep going. Okay? Have that visual in mind. To smooth it out, well, let me rephrase that. If you're going to do this kind of a 1 potato, 2 potato kind of thing, you must stop the tonfa in a straight line. If I'm going to do this 1 potato, 2 potato, and I allow it to dip, I'm now really trying to regain momentum because it's in an odd position. Where in Furiucci it does break the plane is when you're smoothing it out. because you're passing this to go into the next motion. But if I've done this as a singular motion, I'm in the wrong angle for this. It can be done, but you guys haven't been doing TOEFL long enough to generate that just quite yet. So if you're gonna do it one potato, two potatoes, do it from a straight line with your forearm. If you're gonna smooth it out, then it can start dropping, because you're actually going past the men strike, and you're allowing the momentum to come back into the back fist. Okay. Hikite again, mucho. Hajime. Yes. Yes. No. Back over the top. 8. Up. Feet. Whoa. Rope. Seek. Touch. 2. Two.
Yes.
Good. Anyway. Alright, let's do this. You two are gonna go together, you two are gonna go together, you're gonna be on your own. So Risa, I want you to grab that red bag. 2 of you grab one of those bags in the corner, the other 2 grab the other bag. Go. That's not what I even close to what I said, Mr. Brown. Join Mr. Warren over there. You guys are using that bag.
So I said get 2 bags.
Is this the right height?
Sorry?
Is this an okay height?
Maybe come up a little bit. Maybe goes high. If it will. I think one of these bags doesn't really have to adjust much. Alright, everybody grab your TOEFL. Those of you that are working in pairs, get on opposite sides of the bag. And by opposite sides, I mean exactly that, opposite sides. Now, we're gonna start off alternating. Window side is gonna strike, then mirror side is gonna strike. Right hand, left hand. We're gonna start with the side strike. As we're striking, I don't want that. That's not what I want. I want all the way through and back on the heat deck. 1, 2, on the heat deck. So I'm using this backhand strike to make the rotation for the heat deck. So window side, right left, mirror side, right left. Do 30 and then yame. Right. Hajime. Fingers on the top of the handle.
Alternate right left.
Yeah.
You want to start doing that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Since I misunderstood the way you phrased the question. You're going to do right left, alternate, and then he's going to do right left. You do right left, he does right left. So you're going to strike twice on each side. Alright, left. There you go.
bar?
I didn't drop it, I threw it.
That's what I'm saying. You threw it at one. I know you didn't drop it. You just missed one. That's the problem.
I want my shredders.
Now you'll appreciate it more.
He's sanded and oiled.
close enough.
But that's not good.
Yeah, right.
So lose after 5.
Okay. How much fun was that?
Lots.
What?
That's blistered.
Not fun at all. He's getting told for the thumb. There you go. It was a lot of fun for me. A lot of entertainment. Couple of things. Hanshi had a saying, the difference between a feint and a real technique is the feint miss. It should be exact. Everybody knows what a feint is, right? Kind of fake them out, right? That kind of thing. According to him, the only difference between that and actually hitting them was the fact that you actually hit them. Everything else should remain the same. So there was no feinting techniques. It was just, it didn't land. Similar analogy applies to tolfa. If I hit the tolfa, it's a straight line. If I miss, it's a circle. Okay? Now, how does that apply to what you guys were doing? A lot of you were coming out, grabbing it, and then trying to hit it like a baton. Nope. If you were gonna use the tonfa like a club or a baton, you change your grip. Now, we can do that all day long, and it works. That all day long, and it works. Nobody has the grip strength to hold a tonfa like this and hit this way with any kind of power. For those of you that are curious or students of martial history and self-defense and things that go wrong, that's why the Rodney King thing went sideways. Because the 5 or whatever it was cops that beat him with their tonfa did not know what they were doing. They really didn't hurt him. I would have taken the beating that he took just to prove the point. Because that's what they were doing. They were pushing at him. They were pushing at it. Not one of them had any idea on how to use this properly. But even though they should not have done what they did, because 5 of them should have at one point just piled over him, put him in handcuffs, and called it a day. They stood there and beat him. It looks bad on camera, but they didn't actually really hurt him because they didn't know what the hell they were doing on any level. So whatever happened, happened from there. When we are doing this grip with a tonfa, it is in the momentum, not the fact that I'm locking down and coming across. And how do I know when you guys are doing that? Because there is no follow through. If I'm over here, where you guys can see. If I follow through, look where the tonfa ended up.
Is it pivoted as it hit?
It pivoted and came through as I hit. If I come through and it does this, it's because I held on to it the entire way. Y'all can laugh at me for that. It had the momentum to do what it was going to do. Same thing on the back side. Those of you that are coming through like this and then this way. So this should be just as strong as that. And should both of them follow through. Now, if I get in here and I'm scrapping with this guy and I can hit him, that's fine, because whatever happened, I can't get through. That's okie dokie. But if I miss especially, it better be following through. So those of you that I'm hearing scrape the bag and are still ending up over here, it's because you threw it out to about here, held on to it, and then went that way. Okay. Get back to your bag. What we're going to do now is overhead. This one, we're getting kind of short on time, so we're going to do 10 apiece. See if you guys can, how you guys do with this. I'm going to come out, I'm going to go out and back. Right? That's the intent. If, for whatever reason, you misjudge your angle or misjudge your distance, I want you to come back. So, if I hit, it's a straight line, I come straight back. If I miss, I make it a tonfa. Right and left, 10 each, alternating. How'd you make?